So you mentioned that we talked about that you're a Muslim background, you have a Muslim background. Tell us about that. What is growing up a Muslim like? Were you always a devoted Muslim? Was it something that you were just maybe because your parents or your family is Muslim? How was that?
So my parents actually came to Canada from Syria. They came as refugees, and my mom was pregnant with me. And so they had more of a cultural connection to Islam. That's what you will notice in certain Middle Eastern countries, is that it is something that is practiced, and sometimes, much like if you see a Christian country,
Right.
you'll see kind of some people who hold to some similar belief systems, though not practicing. So my parents were not actually practicing Muslims, but they had times in which they were practicing, a lot of which I got to see when I was young. And I will say my extended family is a lot more, we'll say, practicing and conservative in the Islamic faith.
Okay. Um, did you feel as though, did you feel fulfilled during this time of like being Islam, being a Muslim, or did you always know that maybe there was something more, something missing?
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me, to be honest, and I tried to practice it. So I had tried to learn part of the Quran. I had tried doing the prayers. I had an English version of the Quran. I had fasted for Ramadan. So there were many moments where I had tried to fit myself into the mold of Islam and contemplated wearing a hijab at certain points. And it just never fit and never made sense to me. There was just a lot of inconsistencies in the faith that I noticed just even logically as a child didn't make sense to me. So yeah, I would say that and my parents didn't want me to become a conservative Muslim. So I think that also helped safeguard me as well from really inhabiting those beliefs. And I thank God for that.
Okay. So when you say conservative, you're talking about an extreme part of, or extreme part of the spectrum of being an Islam, a Muslim.
Um, there's a lot of people who profess Islam in like maybe attire, but they're not people who are like practicing it regularly, or people who would call themselves that, but they don't reflect the beliefs.
Probably by just association. Like,
Yeah, so it has more to do, like you'll see certain countries, it's just really embedded in the language. Like the Arabic language is very embedded with certain types of words. Similarly, in the country, in their government, even just general sayings and slang would be also sometimes aligned with the Islamic faith, even if a person doesn't hold to the belief system.
Right. Well, you said something that there were some parts of it that did not make sense to you, or that you were having a hard time finding yourself there. What exactly um, about it that did not make sense to you?
Sure, like for example, doing good. So as a child, I was told to do good to go to heaven. I was told to do good because I would earn things for heaven. And that just didn't make sense to me. How could that be the only reason to do good? Like the only reason I love my neighbor is because I'm going to get something in return. We wouldn't teach our children that.
Correct.
So why would I personally live like that?
That's true.
And so then when coming to Christianity, right, where it says, you know, both Old and New Testament, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's the fulfillment of the law. And it's a gift of salvation. So you don't earn anything. You do good even though you got the gift, but you never earned the gift.
Amen. Yes.
So it's a commandment, but it's not something that is. In fact, it says he won't forgive us if we won't forgive others. So there is this paradox that to love God, you have to love your neighbor, and that made sense to me. And that there was always these different points of contention that the Christian faith answered effortlessly.
So the difference between faith and then works, basically, and even love, really,
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
Or like my hair, like being told I had to cover my hair. And that if I didn't cover my hair, I would be hung in hell for all eternity. And I thought, like, so I could do all these different things, but if I don't cover my hair, I'm not going to go to heaven. There was a very distant relationship to God that they had. It was fearful. There were so many things that it didn't quite make sense to me. And when I asked people, like, so tell me in the Quran where it says this, they couldn't reference it. They might reference a prayer, they might reference a person who teaches it, but they would never tell me where in the Quran something said that. They'd say it was a religion of peace. But then when I would go to the Quran and see it, I would see actually it's not. It's not a religion of peace. In fact, if you are not a believer, there are some violent actions towards you if you were in their country. So to say these things, I started to realize there was a lot of hypocrisy and inconsistency in the doctrine that did not make sense both to me as a child and continuously as an adult. So it became easier to start to walk away from it because I couldn't even, from a value perspective, agree with what they were doing.
And it seems like there's a lot of fear as well, like a root of fear.
Yeah.
In your quest of like searching and trying to find what makes sense.
Oh, I
do you-
didn't search.
Well, you knew right away it didn't make sense.
No.
Not for me.